Hello. Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome. Before I dive in any further, I will need or ask of you to please type in the number 1 into the chat box so that way I know you can hear me clearly, just to be on the safe side. Can someone please type in a 1 so that way I know everyone can hear me? Jean, great, welcome, great, perfect. Just 1 or 2 more confirmation and we should be good to go. Perfect. I got Jean again confirming. So thank you so much for joining me today at our first live in 2020. I've definitely been a great year, and I really appreciate all of the support and everybody tuning in today and today's live. So I did hear a couple of questions. I actually did receive a couple of questions through my email. So as usual, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give those questions a priority, and then I will just simply set up the reading the questions from the chat box, practically just opening up the floor for additional questions that people might have. I've noticed that a few have already entered some of the questions here, so I will get to those in a little bit, and I'm going to get started with everything that I've received here via email. So the very first question I have, I'm actually reading off a second screen. It's from Mariana Siles or Siles. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. She is from Argentina, and she's actually tuning in into both channels, the English one and the Spanish one. So thank you very much for your support. And Mariana's question will go as follows. I would like you to talk about foreign investors not living in the U.S., all the steps needed in order to access mortgages, and how to apply for a NETING number and an LLC, and basically everything that involves the building of credit in the United States. So Mariana, thank you for the question. I'm actually very happy to announce that there is an episode in the works now. It's currently being edited. We reviewed it, and so far we're actually waiting for the final touches, and it should be released in both YouTube channels. I will say within the next 2-3 weeks or so, and it's going to cover everything else you will need to know in order to build credit as someone who's actually investing from overseas in the United States. So hopefully that helps answer your question, and thank you once again. Then the next question I have is actually from Luis. Luis is saying that I've done a research, and my question is it really as easy as it seems from the initial investment, meaning coming up with the down payment and using the down payment for the purchase, finding a renter, whether alone or with a property manager, and then make payments for rent and still have positive cash flow and all the expenses covered, such as taxes, your property manager, and stuff like that. So, Luis, I'm not entirely sure what you mean by is it really as easy, because I think easy can be a very general statement. Maybe some processes are actually easy for you, but perhaps for some of the people, it's like going above and beyond. You will actually be surprised to know that even when you tell them that there's access to more funding that you think through the use of credit cards and stuff like that, some people will still find that to be too good to be truth. And instead of like trying to figure out whether or investigating whether that information is actually accurate or whether in fact it could assist them in any type of way, they will refuse to listen to that type of information and then just choose to settle where they are. In your case, it doesn't seem to be the scenario, because you, as you wrote in here, you've been doing research over and over again. So I will say, if it was that easy, everyone will be doing it. And that's why there are those options right there that haven't been fully exploited. You do, in fact, get the option to request credit cards and leverage that amount of money that you can get in order to find the proper rental for you. Now, in terms of finding the right rental investment, I will say that's the part where it gets, quote unquote, not so easy. There are tons and tons of properties in the market, but only very few of them will be worthy of your investment. So there was actually an episode I released a couple of days ago where I talked about college, whether it can actually guarantee your success in life or not. And there was a portion in there where I actually talked about my time where I actually graduated in the middle of the financial crisis back in 2008, and how on average I was sending out 200 and something resumes per week. If you add them up, that will make it 800 and something per month. So I never actually gave up. And I know that a lot of people would have given up somewhere along the line. So it's kind of like going on a bad date, so to speak, right? How many bad days do you actually go on before you find the one? So it's the same thing with finding the proper rental. Every house in the market will not necessarily be the right house for investment. So that's when it becomes not so easy, and it will require a lot of patience in order to make that happen. But once you have a system in place to identify and to actually bring those houses that are worthy of your investment, then it becomes easier, so to speak, as you go along the way. It's just like everything when you're getting set up in the beginning. There's a learning curve. For some people, there's actually a steep learning curve, because maybe all of this information that's related to real estate investment, it's in fact brand new for them. And there are some other people who are a bit more, well, I would say, financially savvy, and they're more knowledgeable on the subject, and it's just simply a matter of like building on top of what they already know and taking what works for them, and eliminating what doesn't really work for them. So hopefully that will help answer your question. The next question I have is from Miriam, and Miriam is actually a big supporter of the channel. She's always commenting on the videos and watching every single one of them. And Miriam's question was, I saw the video where you explained leveraging the escrow money in order to pay off the mortgage faster, but I need help understanding how taxes will be paid and what happens to the insurance. Do I go out and just basically buy a different one? How do the payments actually go about? So Miriam, thank you for your question. It's actually a great question. And so the way it goes, right? Back in the video, if you refer back to it, the video mentions, yes, you can actually talk to the bank after 6 months or perhaps even a year, depending on how seasoned and how comfortable you are, and asking the bank to remove your escrow. And basically what you will do is that the insurance company, you would have contacted the insurance agency before the closing. So you can either contact your insurance company and just tell them that going forward, there won't be any escrow. So any bills that are due in the insurance, they have to go directly to you and not to the bank. So that way you get those emails or those bills in the mail. And every time you get them, then you can either use a 0% credit card to pay them off, or perhaps whatever is it that you save from not having to pay the escrow directly to the bank, then you can use that money and basically just pay for the insurance. And the same thing goes for the taxes. So now with the taxes is a little bit different in the sense that in some states you pay taxes in arrears, meaning you pay them at the end of the year. And in some places you will have to pay them at the beginning. But most states is usually at the end of the year. And the reason why they do that, it's because they need to see a full year worth of history and see how the market did in that particular area, whether the property appreciated, whether other houses were sold for a lower price or a higher price. And they use the pricing of that 1 year of whatever amount of houses that were sold to sort of like determine what the market value is. And then based on that, that's when they get to decide how much you will be owing in taxes. So typically, more often than not, it's due at the end of the year. And then depending on the state, you will have the option to pay that within, a month or two, or sometimes they give an extension to pay that off after 3 months. Of course, I would suggest to not wait until 3 months, because the longer you wait, they do charge you interest, and you do risk putting your property in a tax lien sort of thing. So you definitely do not want to wait until that point in time. So hopefully that helped answer your question. Now, the next question I have is from Alexandra Ortiz, and Alexandra is actually one of my students in the program. So thank you for your question and for wanting to share it with the rest of the YouTube viewers. So Alexandra is asking, according to your experience and knowledge in how the real estate market will behave in these winds of war between the US and Iran, do you think this will positively or negatively affect the direction of our real estate investments? I appreciate your sincere opinions and have a good day. So thank you, Alexandra, for the question. I actually debated whether I wanted to share this question in the YouTube live today or not. And it's mainly because I always shy away from talking about politics and religion, right? I apply the same rules that big companies will typically apply and their corporate rules. It's because everyone has such volatile views in terms of politics and religion. I want to stay away from it. But this particular question does, in fact, has a lot to do with our investment, and it's definitely something that will affect our peace of mind. And some of us will actually, wonder whether this is actually a good time to invest or not, right? So I think the key question is not so much about whether this is a good year or next year will be a good year or whether last year was actually a good year to invest. I think the key question you need to ask yourself is, can I put mitigants in place, so to speak, to reduce the likelihood of that debt? Because as you know, in every single investment, there's no such thing as a zero risk type of investment. There will always be a certain degree of risk, and it's up to the person to determine, okay, what am I really comfortable with? Am I the kind of person who cannot take any kind of risk whatsoever? Then therefore I will go with everything that is extremely conservative. And yes, I don't mind waiting the extra in something year or like gaining the minimum, but I know that at least is quote unquote safe, even though you still have a risk or a percentage of losing something. But compared to other high risk investments, it's less, right? And there are others who are more, prone to taking risks because they understand or they're comfortable, for lack of a better word, saying, well, I'm willing to risk something because I know the returns are going to be bigger and it excites me. It brings some kind of fun to my life, whatever. So they choose to go down that route. So to your particular question about any type of political conflicts and stuff like that, I know that insurance company do offer terrorism coverage for non-occupied properties. I'm not entirely sure if for your primary home you do get terrorism coverage because, as you know, I actually rent my studio in New York City, and as you can see, I actually redecorated this year for efficiency and to provide you guys with a bit of a change when it comes to having a background in all my videos. So, so back to your question, you could ask your insurance company to basically include that type of coverage. And of course, it will come at a premium, and then it will be up to you to decide whether that premium is worth it or not. And you can choose to renew that terrorism coverage every year. And I haven't had the need to use it. I actually do have terrorism coverage given all the political turmoil and things that have been happening lately. And so it's something that I chose to include. It is not mandatory. I don't think that banks make it a mandatory thing, but you as a real estate investor can choose to include those in order to protect your investment. So hopefully that helped out with your question. The next question I have is from Teresa, and Teresa is asking, I would like for you to expand the subject on how you actually can pay down your mortgage using credit cards. I have heard that if you use more than either 20% or 30% of your credit, then you can actually impact your credit in a negative way. So Teresa, thank you for your question. And in fact, you are accurate, but I think it all depends on, once again, your take on risk, on what you are comfortable. Having a 30% credit usage is not the end of the world. It's not ideal for some lenders, but 30%, it's still relatively okay compared to someone who, let's say, has their credit cards maxed out at a 90%, right? So if what your fear is going over the 30%, what you can do, and there's actually an episode where I actually talk about increasing your credit line. So I'm gonna make sure I ask my team to include that once this video is posted as a replay in the YouTube channel. But you can, in fact, just simply call the 1-800 number in the back of your credit card and ask them for a credit line increase before you're about to take that money. So let's say, for example, your credit line is $5,000, right? And you want to make sure that whatever amount of cash you take, whether you're using Venmo or plastic, doesn't exceed that 30%, then you can call that credit card company or the bank and just simply request them to increase your credit line to $8,000, or maybe even double it if you had a really, really good credit history that it's over 10 years or something like that. So once you increase that credit line, in essence, what's going to happen is now instead of having a credit line of $5,000, now you have a credit line of $10,000, which means once you take out that 30%, you're taking a 30% based off $10,000 and not a 30% based off $5,000. So hopefully that helped out with your question. And now these were in essence all of the questions I had online that were submitted beforehand. So we're at 15 minutes in, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor for some questions in here. I see Jose Luis added some questions, but I think he probably got the wrong scheduling because he's asking the questions in Spanish here in the English live. So I'll make sure I can translate that for the benefit of everybody. And then I'll make sure I'll cover this in the Spanish live. For those who want to tune in into the Spanish live, it's at 2:30 and Nova Rice Latino. If you have a business partner that actually only speaks Spanish, but it's willing to do business with you, then you can invite them to join, or maybe you perhaps speak Spanish, but you want to continue to improve that or just practice that. So you're more than welcome to join. So Jose Luis is asking, I went to the bank, and as an immigrant, I was told that I needed to have at least 2 years worth of credit to be able to apply for my credit. Can you talk about tips or share tips about buying a house in the US for the first time? I really appreciate your way of teaching and explaining, and it's definitely going to help us in the US. So like at a high level, that's how I translate it. So I'm not sure about the 2-year timeline. Maybe that particular bank, that particular lending institution had that type of guideline. So you have to understand that not all banks are actually regulated by the same entity. They don't have to abide by the same rules. And even if they are regulated by the same entity, they all have different guidelines that they need to follow based on their size, right? So some banks had, I don't know, like $500 million worth of assets. Some banks are a little bit smaller. I'm just throwing a random number out there. So let's say 30 million. Some are like worth billions. So depending on the size of the assets on their books, they are regulated by different guidelines. So perhaps the bank that you want, their criteria for them to qualify you as an immigrant to get credit in the US is exactly 2 years. But you can go literally to the bank next door to a different company, and they can say, oh, all you need is 6 months. Or other banks could say, hey, no, you don't need that. As long as you have your passport, then we can issue you a secure credit card and you're, good to go. You're off your way. So every bank is different. So I will suggest, and this goes to everyone, not just to Jose, but everyone gets easily shut down. So the minute that you go to a bank or a lending institution and you just request a mortgage, the fact that they say no, you should never take that personal, because it's not a personal act against you. Always remember that banks have quotas and that they have guidelines that they need to abide because they are regulated. So let's say, for example, if you go to a bank to request for a mortgage at the end of the month, maybe you're hitting that point where they have issued all of the mortgages that they are allowed to give out on that particular month. But then if you choose a different time to go back, let's say at the beginning of the month or maybe the middle of the month, then all of a sudden you qualify. And it's because of that reason. I mean, that's not the only reason, but there are many other components that are, factoring into the equation. Or perhaps, your credit profile, your net worth, or anything that has to do with your financial profile just didn't meet their criteria. Perhaps you were too risky, or perhaps you didn't have enough assets and they were looking for individuals or investors that have a certain amount of assets in their books before they can even consider negotiating or having a relationship with you. So it's never a personal thing against the banker or against the broker. It's just simply the way how rules are set up, and they have to abide by it. So if one bank says no, hey, there are plenty of other banks here in the US. Just in one state alone, even here in New York City, I can walk out, and in one day, there's impossible that I could even visit all of the banks that are available in here. They are the big ones, like everyone knows, Chase, Bank of America, Capital One, and then you have the municipal banks, you have the local banks. Like there's so many options for you to choose from. So, chin up and don't feel bad if one bank says no. Just go out and you ask someone else, and hopefully that person will say yes, or that lending institution will say yes. So hopefully that helped out with your question. Benny says, good morning, coach. Good morning, Benny. Thank you for joining. So Benny is actually one of my students as well. So thank you for joining. Let me know if you do have questions. He's been busy. He's been going MIA quite some time, but I'm really glad to see him back here. So that's basically just good news. You're busy working, you're busy making deals happen. So once again, thank you. Glad to see you here. I have Ramesh. Hi, Ramesh. Ramesh is a longtime follower. He always asks good questions. So let's see what he has this time. So Ramesh is asking, hi, Lucilia. When we take a loan from our 401k, I know that we can take 50% and we need to return it within 5 years. My question is, if I change my job within 5 years and there's any period, do I need to pay it off? That's actually an excellent question. And that will depend on your job and whoever's managing that 401k. So for the most part, they are key players that are usually the ones that manage the 401ks. Usually Fidelity, some of them are Ameritrade, not Ameritrade. Fidelity, I know it's a big one. I can't think of the top of my head of the other companies, but they're usually like the big fours and stuff like that. So what you need to do, you actually have to either call the 1-800 number and their website on your retirement plan website, and then ask to speak to someone and see what the rules are. If that doesn't work, usually HR has their own policies as well as part of your company, and they will tell you what happens. I know that with some companies, for example, you are not even allowed to take up to 50%. Like you can take less. And some other companies, they allow you to take up to 2 loans in your 401k as long as they don't exceed the 50%. And I also know about other companies that when you leave, everything becomes due, meaning whatever debt you have to pay that. And when you have to repay that back, not only you have to pay a 10% penalty because the IRS will look at it as a distribution, right? Meaning income coming your way. You also have to pay taxes that are due at that particular time. But there are other jobs that offer you a payment plan. Like you don't have to pay everything you borrow, on the day that you leave, or like within a few weeks after you leave. You can still continue, your 5-year payment plan. And all you have to do is just to come to an agreement as to what's the right amount of payment. They usually give you options to do that. And then you take it from there as to what you decide to do. So hopefully that answers your question. I have a Benny. Benny's asking if I recommend HELOC on multiple properties. So, the topic of a HELOC is kind of interesting because I've heard a lot of mixed things. Usually for your HELOC, or at least on paper, right? You can only do a HELOC on your primary residence because HELOC stands for a home equity line of credit. It's supposed to be your home and not a house, right? And I've heard of a lot of people commenting in some of my YouTube videos that they were in fact able to get a HELOC and but no problem on the rental. So I'm not sure if maybe I was missing a context around what the story was. Maybe this individual who was able to take a HELOC also lived in the property because, hey, if you buy a duplex or if you buy a 3-family or 4-family, right, you can still live on one side and rent out all the other floors or the other apartments, and that will still make it your home because you are residing there. It is still your primary residence. But in terms of using your HELOC to invest, I'm thinking that's what your question is coming from, Benny. It all depends on what is it that you're looking for, right? So for some who have watched some of my YouTube channel, when you're using your property as an asset for you to get access to additional equity or cash to invest in real estate, you can do it through a HELOC or you can do it through a cash out refi, right? So the key difference is that the HELOC acts as a credit card, meaning that, let's say, for example, your house is worth $200,000 and let's just, for simplicity's sake, you get approved for a HELOC of $150,000, right? So with a HELOC, you don't have to take all $150,000. You can take chunks chunks of it, kind of like a credit card. You have a credit card for $10,000, you spend $500 today, and you're only reliable and responsible for repaying back that $500. And then those $500 are it's the amount that will incur interest. So it's exactly the same thing with the HELOC. You pay based on how much you took out, and you only pay interest based on how much you took out. The cash out refi, on the other hand, it's actually set for the most part, unless you sign up for an adjustable rate cash out refi, an ARM, and then you get all the lump sum all at once. So it's kind of like a mortgage, but reverse. So rather than you paying the money, you kind of like got all the money beforehand, right? So you get all that money, and you can choose, how you want to invest that money. You can buy another property cash in a lump sum, or you can use, chunks of it and buy 3 or 4 properties and, allocate 20% of that money so you can use that as a down payment. So I've had mixed reviews. I won't say one product is better than the other. I don't have a HELOC, and I've never applied for HELOC because I don't own my primary residence. For those that, have seen my YouTube videos, I chose to invest my money elsewhere, and I have no problem renting a smaller studio here in New York City, mainly for the diversity. I love the city. I love being, close to everything within walking distance. It's just, I like the lifestyle here. But for those who are actually considering a HELOC, one thing that you need to take into consideration are the variable interests, right? Because it all depends on what's going to happen in the market. So if the Federal Reserve announces that, the rates are going to go down, then whatever amount of money you take out, right, it's going to readjust its interest rate to that new percentage. But then if you take out whatever amount of money you want to use, let's say 10 years, not 10 years, because usually HELOCs are good for 10 years. Let's say 3-4 years down the road, and then the interest rates, they go up by a couple of points. And then, so when you take your money out, it will be adjusted at that point in time. So HELOCs are always adjusted. Cash out refis, for the most part, they're set unless you specifically ask for a cash out refi with an adjustable rate, and that's when it's going to adjust to the market. So I know adjustable rate mortgages have gained a negative reputation, a negative connotation because of what happened in 2008. And I think it just simply had to do with the lack of transparency from the banks and the fact that the consumers didn't exactly really know what they were signing up for. But for those who are actually tuning in into what the Federal Reserve Bank has to say, and then the announcements of what they plan to do with the interest rate, if you can monitor that and use that as a benchmark to determine the interest rates, how they're going to look in the near future for your investment, then you can actually take a great advantage of those adjustable rate mortgages, and in this case, including a HELOC. So hopefully I answered your question, Benny. I have Roberto Fuentes. Roberto, in my opinion, what is my opinion about working with a turnkey company to invest in real estate? So it's interesting. I think I've answered this question in a different life, but I'm going to go and address that again. So for those who don't know what a turnkey company is, a turnkey company is basically what the word stands for. It's turn your key. So all you do is to invest in a real estate property, right? Where you get the key, you get the final product, the house is nicely built in and it's ready for you to rent it out. So that's where turnkey comes from. I have heard mixed reviews. Honestly speaking, I do not invest in turnkeys. I do know people who have turnkey companies. I've actually met quite a few back in 2018, where I've had the opportunity to invest in that as well. But there were too many key components in the equation that I did not like. But that's because it just didn't match my investing style. It could match some other people investing style, maybe. That's what exactly other people were looking for. But in essence, the turnkey real estate products are geared towards people who want something, I will say for the most part, extremely passive. They want to own real estate. They don't want to get their hands dirty in terms of flipping or renovating. They don't want to invest the time researching the market and stuff like that. They just simply want to see what the stats are looking like. They see the reports that are actually provided by the real estate company, and they get to decide, hey, this is a good investment. If I invest $50,000 in this and I'm getting a return of like, I don't know, 700 in rent, I think it's a good investment, right? Like everyone has their own benchmark. So the opportunity that I received was to be part of the team that could be or become that turnkey company. That means dealing with contractors, dealing with constructions and permits. And that's something that I personally did not like because there were too many cooks in the kitchen and there were way too many other investors in the equation. So I like to have full control of my investments. I do have partners, but they are silent partners. I manage the money. I get to dictate how everything is run in my real estate portfolio. All they have to do is just to invest their money and make sure that at the end of each month, they get their return that was promised in a contract and in writing, and they are happy. So that's how I manage my investment. I don't like to share. So I'm kind of like the banks when it comes to, issuing a mortgage for other people. Banks don't like to see that you owe money to other people, only themselves. So I'm pretty much the same way. So it all depends on you as a real estate investor. It's kind of difficult for me to say, yes, go this way, or no, don't go that way. It did not work for me, even as the passive investor or the active one in that equation. I just didn't like that model, but I know other people are doing it. Some people are happy. So I think it's more of you needing to ask yourself the same question, whether it actually makes sense for you, and if that's something that you would like to pursue. I think that the key point here is that it's important for you to educate yourself, get enough information so you can make the right decision based on something that will work out for you. That's why real estate is very versatile, because it has so many different ways to go about it, but it has to make sense for you as an investor. You have to feel comfortable with the decision that you're making. I need some water. So before I go into the next question, I'm just going to drink some. Okay, so hopefully that helped out answer your question. I have Simri saying great stuff. Nice to see you. And Anthony, thank you, Anthony. Anthony's just included the link to the video where you can actually request an increase to the credit line. So feel free to check it out. Let's see. Jose Luis is asking, what do you know about help that government give when you are in your first home buying a house? Are you talking about FHA mortgages and stuff like that? There's actually another link to another video that I launched about 1.5 years ago that talks about the different type of mortgages that you can receive. I know there are other type of helps out there of government assistance that they're giving out to immigrants who are trying to buy their first home in this country. I don't remember which ones they are on the top of my head, but there is a video that it's in the make. It's actually currently in production, and it's scheduled to be filmed. So if you can hold on tight, there will be a video coming out within the next month or so where you can actually learn more about the different type of programs that you can leverage. But in the meantime, if you want, feel free to check out the video about the different type of mortgages available in the market. And, there are links to HUD where you can actually go visit their website and you can actually check out what type of programs they have. So feel free to check that on your own, and stay tuned for the next video. So let's see. Jose Luis. Oh, Dulce. Hi, Dulce. Dulce is also one of my students. Very nice to see you. Happy New Year. Hopefully you're doing excellent. And thanks for tuning in. So Benny saying, thanks, Coach Gray. Luigi Garcia, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Eliu, hi, Eliu. I'm using a line of credit to put a down payment on my third property. Is it true that I only need to put down 10% since I'm buying the property out of state? I have never heard of such thing, but if you do know of a bank that allows you to put down only 10%, please let me know, because I definitely would love to check that out and find out myself. My understanding is that if you're buying either your first home or you are qualifying for certain programs, or if you're using an FHA loan, you can put down somewhere between 3.5% to 5% down as a down payment. For traditional mortgages, one that you will apply for your own, then you typically put down 20%. But anything that is investment related, or a second home, and even if it's a second home and it's out of state, the likelihood is that the bank will view that as an investment property, even if you buy that as a second home. Because if you live in New York and you're buying a house in Philadelphia, what's the likelihood that you were willing to commute 2.5 hours, sometimes even 3, from Philadelphia all the way here, right? So for the most part, what they will require is a 25% down. So I've never heard of such thing. Now, I think the caveat that could differ in here is that you're using that line of credit with the same bank. So let's say, for example, let me try to think of an example that happened to me. So when I used the cash out refi and I purchased my 17 unit, I did the cash out refi and the financing with the same bank. So I had a double closing on the very same day. So I closed in the cash out refi and I closed on my mortgage that same day. So what happens is, in essence, I could say that that was a 0% down investment because I didn't really have to come out with any cash or any money or any funding out of my pocket. What I did, I leveraged another property and I put that money down. So if that's the scenario, then basically what they're saying is that yes, you're using a line of credit. Maybe that line of credit is coming out from one of your assets. It could be a car, it could be your stock portfolio, it could be another real estate property that you have, an investment property that you have, and then maybe 10% came out of it, and or 15% came out of it since it's an investment. And that means that the equity that you were able to pull out from that particular property was not enough, and therefore you still need to come out with 10% of your money in order to cover the down payment. So I think that's what happens. I could be wrong, right? There are plenty of new products coming out every day. So maybe this is one of those products that I was not well aware of. But if you're okay with sharing it with everybody, please do so that we can all benefit from that new piece of information that you know. So thank you for sharing. Eliu, that is what an out-of-state real estate agent informed me. Yeah, I'm not sure. I invest out of state, but hey, maybe in that particular state they're having some type of incentive for out of state real estate investors to come in. I know they do that all the time. I know Alabama, for example, a couple of years ago, they have big incentives to bring other investors from other states so they can invest and kind of like revitalize certain neighborhoods. So that's a possibility. And what you can do is just simply reach out to that real estate agent and ask, hey, what are some of the articles that you can forward me so I could better inform myself on the subject. I would like to look more into it. And they can't say no, right? And that's when you can actually find out whether this is something that that person made up or whether it in fact is true. And then you can corroborate that with yourself and, feel safe that, okay, this is not something that it's unreal. It is happening. And here I have my sources that to corroborate that information. So Joel Almonte, opinion on using 0% 12-month introductory business credit cards for house flipping and investing. A lot of house flippers actually do that. In fact, one of my mentors does that all the time. I think the key question is, well, one, whether the flipping and the sale of that property that you're flipping can happen within that 12-month period. And on average, it should be enough because normally a flipping, if you're doing a major renovation, it should take somewhere between 6 months to 12 months. You could run into chances where maybe the sale could take a little longer. So instead of you selling the property within 12 months, you sell it at month 13. That will still be enough for you to pay down the debt. Another option that you can do if you run into issues selling the property, maybe the permit took a little bit longer, because those are instances that can happen when you're flipping a property, is that you can just either take out a personal loan, pay down that credit card debt. So that way you can, increase your credit score. And then you just simply go out and apply for new 0% credit cards and then use the 0% credit cards and pay down the debt that you took out on your personal loan. So those are some of the ways that you can go about addressing that kind of debt. But I do know that a lot of people, a lot of flippers actually use that. Another creative option that I heard are people investing with business lines of credit from Home Depot, because they give 12-month financing. So let's say, for example, if you're looking to place a new kitchen in a property that you're flipping, yes, they might be a little bit more expensive than the ones that you will get out in the mom and pop stores and stuff like that. But what's good about it is that you're actually using their line of credit, and then you have your other credit cards at 0% that you can leverage for other stuff that you will probably need to invest in the house. So multiple creative ways to go about it. Hopefully that helped out your question, Joel. Jesus, great concept, great stuff. Eliu, thanks. Joel, FHA versus conventional. So a conventional mortgage is usually 20% down, and you need to have a higher credit score. Usually usually around 630, 620-ish. With an FHA, you can actually do 3.5 to 5% money down, and you can apply for a mortgage with a credit score of even 580, depending on the bank that you are. And the reason why it's lower and it requires less, it's because it's backed by HUD and to help you finance your first home. So hopefully that helped out. I have Sean. Hello, thanks for the info. Can you speak about Fund and Grow? I have a 7 credit score, paid off my car, and I'm waiting for my new score to join. Is that a good idea to wait? That's something that you can negotiate with Fund and Grow. If you sign up for the service, I'll suggest you to be, as transparent as possible, because they are the experts in their service. But my understanding is that if, let's say, for example, you sign up and you're waiting for your new score to upgrade, there's a way that you can do to expedite that. And that's by literally calling each credit bureau and faxing or sending them or mailing them an actual mail paper copies of your bank statement showing that, hey, the funds did leave your bank account to pay that credit card. And then you can send screenshots or actually credit card statements showing that you have zero balance owed in that. And you can just mail it directly to the credit bureaus, and they have to upgrade that right away. That's something that banks usually do when they are closing on a mortgage and they're trying to help you get a better rate. So the banks themselves, they call the credit bureaus and they have that score updated right away. And if you do that, it will take somewhere, I would say, less than a week, and your score will automatically be updated, as opposed to you waiting for the next cycle and their reporting. So hopefully that helped out answer your question. But anything else that's related to how they go about it, their approach, I think that it's best for you to discuss that with Fund and Grow, because everything goes on a case-by-case basis. I can only speak to what happened in my experience, but maybe your experience is a little bit different than mine. So it's difficult for me to really know how to go about certain things. But Fund and Grow, they have worked with thousands and thousands of clients. So they do know, in fact, what to expect and what scenarios are, and they can, guide you through the entire experience. So hopefully that helped out. I am at minute 40. And I'm not sure if you guys have some more questions. So I'm going to go ahead and give it some time for everybody to start typing in some. In the meantime, while I'm waiting for new questions, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. Just so you know, I know that the video to pay off your mortgage using credit card has gained a lot of popularity, and I really appreciate that. And I'm very happy that it's actually helping and it's changing lives. But at the same time, I have been getting a lot of emails, and my team has been getting a lot of emails in terms of gaining access to the spreadsheet. So at the beginning, my team and I, we used to reply to those emails, but the volume has gone, a little out of hand. While we really appreciate the support and the value that it's adding, I have given my team strict instructions to not reply to those emails ever again, because it's taking away time from other questions that we can definitely add value to. And the reason why I asked them to stop replying to those emails is because the instructions on how to make copy, how to enter your information is in fact shared in the video itself. And it's actually reiterated 3 times in that particular video. So if you're having trouble accessing the file or entering your information, I highly, highly and strongly recommend that you go back and watch the video again, because everything you need to know will be on that video. So don't feel bad if my team doesn't reply to you, but we are getting a big flow of emails with people asking for help and stuff like that. So we want to be able to address something that hasn't been addressed in the video versus replying to something that has been repeated in the video, not just 1, but actually 3 times. So please go back and take a look at the video again. So that's it. I have, let's see. Any more questions from everybody? Sean was the last person who submitted the question. I have Jose Luis. Jose Luis is saying, is there any way to buy a house in foreclosure with a bank credit card? How can I do it? Jose Luis, I'm not sure if you actually got a chance to watch a seminar that I created online. It's actually free. You can either watch it in English or in Spanish, completely up to you. But in that seminar, I actually say that banks don't like to share their debt, right? They don't like to know that you owe money to other people. They want to be the only players in the game. So to answer your question, no, you cannot pay for a foreclosure directly with your credit card, but you can leverage credit cards and take my money out of those credit cards using services like Venmo or Plastic, and then in the end have that money end up in your bank account, and then from your bank account you can actually cover the cost of the foreclosure. There is a video, there are actually multiple videos in the YouTube channel, so I'll make sure I'll ask my team to include those at the end after the replay is posted in YouTube, so you can actually check those out. There's one that actually walks you through how you can actually use Plastic as a service to get access to the money still at 0% in your credit cards and use it to invest in real estate. And you can also watch another video where I talk about Venmo as well, that you can leverage that in order to get access to the funding to invest in real estate. So hopefully that helps out. But yes, never go straight to the bank and say, I have the 0% credit card and I want to pay off my mortgage, or I have the 0% credit card and I want to pay down my debt, or I want to use this money to pay the down payment, because you're going to get a no right from the get-go and they're going to ask you to leave. So don't do that, please. Just watch the video, make sure you watch that and understand the logistics, and you should be good to go. So I kind of like lost my train of thought. So Jose Luis, okay, I have that here. Hopefully that answered your question. Joel, I'm in New York also. What market would you recommend to start investing? I don't like to poo-poo in other states or to say that New York is the best state. The opportunities are pretty much everywhere. And I know Dulce, she's one of my students, and she's been, joining all the YouTube sites, and she can in fact corroborate that the opportunities are basically everywhere. You just have to look, one, what meets your criteria, right? And then two, what's available within your budget that you can afford to buy or invest. I know a lot of people usually get hung up and, properties in New York are too expensive, or properties, and by that, I'm not saying you, I'm just basing it off on comments that I have read and on my YouTube channel. This strategy will never work in California because houses are too expensive. And what they fail to understand is that they are, locked up in a box, so to speak, right? They're not thinking, well, what if I look outside of this area? Maybe it is very expensive to invest in New York City in general, but if I look outside, then things are going to be a lot more affordable, so to speak, right? So in terms of the state, it will be entirely up to you. Some people are more comfortable investing, let's say, in New Jersey or in Philly because it's somewhere, not Philly, Pennsylvania, because it's relatively closer and they can still feel that they can hop on a car and be there within 2-3 hours. There are some other people that, just with the thought of like investing in Florida and you being in New York and your property in Florida, it's like out of the question. Like there's no way, I have to have full control. I cannot do that. So that will be entirely up to you. But let me tell you that even in a city or in states where things are expensive, you do find opportunities. Just remember that video where I talked about, my college education, whether college in itself can guarantee your success. I sent out 200 resumes per week, 800 per month. And out of those, after 2 years, I only got 3 calls. So you have to keep in mind that every single house in the market is not worthy of your investment. It's not investment friendly. Usually, these houses are catered more to people who are looking for a home, people who are buying but emotions. But you as a real estate investor should set the emotions on the side, and you should base everything on the numbers and on facts, right? There is a video that I actually published, I will say about 1.5 years ago. It was one of my very first videos where I actually walk everyone through how you can actually, single hand and pick the property from Zillow and just learn to do the analysis. By that, I'm not saying that every property in Zillow will be worthy of investment, but it's a good way for you to start practicing and identifying what are some of the demographics in the area by leveraging tools like niche.com and other tools that I share in the video. So you can use that to start getting acclimated and do as I did at the beginning, right? I literally just went on Google Maps and I just randomly pick a state and I randomly start picking areas out of the blue, no reason in particular, just to pick. Like, let me see if I can find this hidden gold mine, right? And then whatever area I just happened to place my mouse in, I did the analysis. Some of them were good, some of them are definitely worth considering, and some of them were like gold mines that we're hitting that no one knew. And I just went after the area. So that's definitely the best advice I can give you. But there's no way for me to say this is the state that you should go, because I don't want to offend anybody. Maybe some real estate investors are doing really good in that particular state, but maybe for me, I didn't do so well. So, or maybe certain investment criteria are different as well. Maybe they're excellent for other investors, but for me, they're, kind of like average. So I definitely want to keep a level playing field, and where we set up an environment that is respectful for everyone. And at the same time, not discourage other people in terms of what their investment criteria will be. So hopefully that helps answer your question. Let me see, Joel, if that's the correct question. Okay, I think it was. Luigi Garcia is asking LLC lawyer versus legal Zoom. There's a saying in Spanish that goes as follow. Para zapato, zapatero. And the translation will be, for your shoes, go to a shoemaker, right? So I know LegalZoom has gained a lot of popularity, and I view LegalZoom as a good source of information, and also as a good source to sort of like help you take care of something at a high level. Let's say you're in a rush. Let's say you need to take care of something, and you need to, get a quick fix. But if what you're trying to do is basically set up a good structure for asset protection to make sure that everything that you worked so hard for, LegalZoom will not do it for you. And you will realize that as you are answering some of the questions in LegalZoom, depending on the level of complexity, sometimes LegalZoom will say, we cannot help you with this template. You have to reach out for an attorney. And here's a listing of attorneys that actually work with us at LegalZoom, and we highly suggest that you reach out to them. So again, it all depends on what you're looking for. Are you looking for a quick fix because you don't have time, which I highly don't recommend, because I am a big proponent of, if you're going to do something, you're better off doing it right for the first time. So that way you can just sit back and relax, or like just simply focus on other things, versus just setting it up knowing that, it's TBD, you still have to work on it somewhere down the line. And then next thing you know, you have not just that one item to take care of, but you have 50 other ones that you manage to pile up over time. And that becomes very expensive to undo. And also, costly in terms of time, because then you're going to have to devote a lot of hours, perhaps even days, sometimes even weeks, to undo certain things that you could have set up properly in the first place. So LegalZoom, again, it's a great source of information, is a great source of education and a quick fix. But if you're trying to do something that is complex to ensure the maximum level of protection, even LegalZoom will send you to an attorney. So hopefully that helps out with the question that you had. Then the next one, Sean, how can I become a student? I'm live and upstate. Bless you. Thank you. Are you asking to become a student as part of my program, or are you asking in general to any schools? If you're asking to be part of my program, I'll ask my team to please include a link to a online webinar. So the webinar is actually free of charge, and it's meant to for two things, right? It's created for two reasons. One, to help you get started in real estate the proper way. So with that, with the information that you acquire, you can actually get a good sense of, okay, so if I start working on this, then I'm one step or two steps or 10 steps closer to having the ability to invest in my first real estate property. And it's also designed to give you a walkthrough of what the program has to offer. Now, I know I have some of my students here, Deanne Bermudez, Benny Felipe. It's also, they're both my students. So you can ask them questions if that's something that you're interested, but you will get the link in here and also in the description in the replay. I never asked Dulce or Benny if they were okay. Hopefully you guys are. And if not, I completely understand. I'll make sure I'll leave a link to the seminar down below in the replay, so you can actually check it out, Sean, yourself, and see if that's something that will be worthy, or that's something that you're interested in investing and pursuing. The classes are actually online because it's meant to design, they were actually designed to help out people from all over the states. And I don't don't like the whole model where you have to be in a physical location all the time. We all have full-time jobs. We all have responsibilities. We have children. We have parents that we need to take care of. So it's meant to be extremely flexible. And there's a support community through Facebook and also through me where you can access and ask questions and analyze your deals all together. The community is actually very engaged and they love to help one another. So feel free to check it out, and that will help you on your decision. So let me see. Joelle, thank you. Okay, thank you. Sean, yes. Okay, great. You got the link right there. Anthony just sent it over to you. Bless up family and love. Thank you, Sean, for the great vibes. So we're at minute 53. I have 6 something or 7-ish minutes for everyone who might have any additional questions for me. Oh, I flipped out for a second because my screen froze. I thought the internet dropped, but I'm back online. So hopefully you guys can still see me and hear me. Any additional questions for everybody before we end this live call and give everyone their time back on a Sunday so they can enjoy it with their families and their loved ones and continue to enjoy their breaks? So while we're here, can we send them the link of the different types of mortgages? If not, then I'll just, upload that after the live. So I have Timothy. Welcome, Timothy. You're amazing. Nothing like knowing your craft. Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you in advance. My aunt passed. Her daughter doesn't want the house. Issue with signing it over because she's out of state. Is there a way to get money to repay? So are you looking to help your well, not your aunt, but I think in this case will be your cousin. Are you looking to help your cousin repair the property and maintain it? Or are you looking to help your cousin to get rid of the property because she doesn't want to deal with it anymore and you want it? If she doesn't want a property anymore and you want it, then you can, work out a deal with her and purchase. Okay. And purchase it. Yes. So I think I'm a little confused as to what your question is. Are you asking how to come up with the money to invest, or are you just simply asking about the legal process and how to actually transfer the title from herself to yourself? If that's the question, you definitely have to reach out to a real estate attorney. It has to be a real estate attorney, not any other type of attorney, because they need to specialize in the laws. And no, the issue doesn't want anything to do with it. So, hey, perfect. So you can buy it straight off of her. Just make sure you do a good assessment of what the property is worth. I'm not sure what the conditions are, if they're in excellent conditions or they need some type of repair. And actually in the seminar, you will get access to a calculator, a tool that it's going to help you determine the right price to pay for any type of a real estate investment property, whether it's one that is ready and up and running and you can just go ahead to simply, offer the price and buy it and rent it out, or even a property like this where you will, have the opportunity to factor in the amount of money that you need to put into repairing it and get it either rent ready or getting it flipping ready or sales ready, depending on the term. You like to use the money to buy more properties, houses, and 88%. So, it sounds like it's a really good deal. I think it's a matter of you determining what's the right price to offer her, and then just work out the logistics, whether you want to go through a mortgage or just simply work out something in private with her where you can just, I don't know, maybe share some of the profits or just give her half the rent that you receive at the end of the month, if in the event that you do decide to keep it for rent. So those are things that you're going to have to negotiate on your own in private and see how she wants to deal with it. So no, I meant the mortgage for you to be able to buy it, not the mortgage on the property. It's actually a great deal, the fact that the house is free and clear and there's nothing owed in it. So I think that the part where you need to actually discuss with your cousin will be the financing part of it, right? Like, are you taking that property and, buying it off of her through a mortgage, or you're working out some kind of like deal in between you two, and then, offer her, hey, I'll give you this much as down payment, but then every month I'll give you this much for the next 15 years or so. That way you get to have a piece of it, you get to own the equity on that property, but then your cousin also gets to receive some sort of like not financing, sign money. It's the term that I'm looking for her. So and if you don't know what price to offer, feel free to check out the webinar. You will get access to a calculator if you stay all the way until the end. And then once you get that, you can, simply punching the numbers, make sure that you listened in very detail how to make a copy of that document, because you will not be able to make edits off of it. And that's it. Is there equity when there's a mortgage? Are you talking you, or are you talking, whoever it's trying to sell you a house? So the equity in a house is actually gained in two ways, right? One, market appreciation, right? That there are some neighborhoods where the market just simply appreciates, and you can buy a house for $100,000, but then 2-3 years down the road, it could be worth $130,000. So that in itself, the appreciation component of it becomes equity for whoever is owning that property. Then the second way you obtain equity in a property is just by simply paying down the mortgage. So the more you pay towards the principal, the faster you acquire that mortgage. That's why it is always recommended to pay extra towards the monthly payments rather than paying the bare minimum, because as I share in my video of paying your mortgage with credit cards, for a mortgage of $200,000, let's assume you're paying $2,000 every month, only 100 of it is going to go back towards the principal, meaning paying down your debt, which means you only acquire $100 worth of equity, and then the remaining 1,900 it's going to go towards interest. So the more you contribute towards that principal, the more equity you're going to gain, and that way you can use that portion of the equity to continue expanding your real estate portfolio, either through a HELOC or a cash out refi. So hopefully that helped out, Tim. Feel free to check out the webinar if that's something you want. For 4 generations, my aunt took 70 out in 98. So, all right, but it sounds like it's actually on free and clear. So if it's on free and clear, the house has, or your cousin or eventually you will have 100% equity on it. So hopefully that helped out. Just feel free to check out the webinar. It's helpful, and you will definitely be able to get the right pricing out of it. So that way you can negotiate with your cousin the right pricing, and then just, go forward with the next steps. So we have hit exactly 1 hour. Thank you for joining. I have to get ready for my next live. I was going to say seminar, for my next live with the Spanish community. Those who want to tune in is actually at 2:30. So feel free to join. Michael, there is a link up there by Anthony Janos, and you can actually see that, and you can actually sign up using that webinar as well. It's free of charge, so everyone is more than welcome to join. So thank you very much. For those who want to join the Spanish webinar, I'll see you at 2:30. And if not, enjoy a wonderful, wonderful, happy Sunday. And, so you can get some rest and get ready to start the week tomorrow. So take care. Thank you, and enjoy. Bye-bye.